The news broke like a thunderclap across global capitals. It arrived not with the roar of artillery, but with the quiet, devastating click of a data file being uploaded. On October 22, 2025, Ukraine's security service, the SBU, released a dossier that could redefine the war. The documents exposed a massive covert operation. Chinese state-linked corporations secretly bankrolling a shadow oil trade. An estimated $2.4 billion had been funneled into Russia's war machine. The revelation sent shockwaves through diplomatic channels, financial markets, and military headquarters worldwide. This wasn't just another accusation. It was a digital trail leading from Beijing to the front lines in Ukraine. For months, whispers of sanctions evasion had circulated. But the scale and directness of this scheme were breathtaking. Ukraine's intelligence services had pierced the veil of plausible deniability around China's role. The world now faced an uncomfortable truth. The war was being fueled by a powerful, hidden benefactor. The timing was strategic, as Western allies debated support for Ukraine and Russia prepared for winter. The dossier named specific companies, detailed financial transactions, and included intercepted communications. The message: the world could no longer ignore the silent partners in this war. Moscow dismissed the report as propaganda. Beijing issued a carefully worded denial. But the sheer volume of evidence, shipping manifests, bank transfers, encrypted messages, made denial almost impossible. Ukraine had launched an information bomb at the heart of Russia's economic support system. The world held its breath, waiting to see how the great powers would respond. At the core of Ukraine's revelation is a sophisticated clandestine oil route. This was no rogue operation. It was a state-level scheme to circumvent sanctions and fund Russia's war. The SBU's Project Golden Dragon detailed how Russian oil was purchased by shell companies, financed and controlled by major Chinese state-owned enterprises. Over 18 months, $2.4 billion flowed back to the Kremlin, funding everything from missiles to soldiers' salaries. The key players were giants of Chinese industry, with deep ties to the Communist Party. Russian oil, barred from Western markets, was sold at a discount, rebranded, and resold globally. Profits were funneled back to Russia through offshore accounts, making transactions nearly untraceable. Chinese firms provided financing and insurance, acting as the invisible hand behind the operation. On paper, China could claim plausible deniability, but Ukraine's evidence directly links the financing to Beijing. This financial lifeline has been indispensable for Moscow, allowing it to sustain a costly war effort. The $2.4 billion represents tanks, artillery, and drones, fuel for the fire raining down on Ukraine. By exposing this route, Ukraine has struck at a fundamental pillar of Russia's war. The Shadow Pipeline's exposure is a strategic blow to Moscow's war machine. Ukraine's intelligence coup was a blend of classic espionage and cutting-edge cyber warfare. It began when agents noticed anomalies in shipping patterns, tankers making odd stops at Russian ports. Field informants flagged suspicious vessels, but the breakthrough came from cyber units infiltrating the networks of shell companies. Ukrainian cyber spies spent months inside these systems, gathering emails, bank receipts, and contracts. Intercepted communications revealed the command structure and methods for disguising oil origins. Payment trails led through banks in Hong Kong, the UAE, and Switzerland, landing in Russian accounts. Western partners provided technical assistance, giving Ukraine access to satellite surveillance and global tracking. Operation Nightingale was a fusion of human intelligence and cyber espionage, one of the war's most significant intelligence victories. The covert oil route was a masterclass in deception, using a dark fleet of aging tankers owned by opaque companies. These ships turned off their transponders near Russian ports, loaded crude, and vanished from satellite tracking. Ship-to-ship transfers in international waters disguised the oil's origin, mixing it with other sources to thwart forensic analysis. Shell companies in Dubai, the British Virgin Islands, and Hong Kong layered ownership and finance, creating a firewall. Payments avoided the US dollar, routed through discrete banks. The network was designed for resilience. If one tanker or company was caught, the rest continued. Dozens of shipping companies, hundreds of bank accounts, and multiple brokers made the system robust. Ukraine's achievement was mapping the entire ecosystem and tracing it back to Beijing. This wasn't just a leak. It was a blueprint of global sanctions evasion. The exposure shattered the illusion of plausible deniability. The $2.4 billion funneled to Russia isn't abstract. It's firepower on the battlefield. That sum could buy over 500 modern tanks or millions of artillery shells. It funds the drones and missiles terrorizing Ukrainian cities. This covert income has kept Russia's war machine running despite sanctions. Every dollar earned prolongs the conflict and insulates Putin from economic pressure. The revelation exposes a shadow economy profiting from war. Cutting this pipeline is a strategic move to save lives on the front lines. China has long claimed neutrality, calling for peace while maintaining close ties with Moscow. Ukraine's report threatens to shatter this facade. The evidence forces a question. Was Beijing complicit or simply unable to control its own state-linked firms? Either answer is damaging. Active support undermines China's global standing, while ignorance suggests incompetence. The world now demands answers, and simple denials won't suffice. China faces a dilemma: investigate and risk angering Russia, or defend its firms and face Western backlash. The tightrope has snapped, and Beijing's next move will shape its global ambitions. Operation Nightingale marks a transformation in Ukraine's intelligence services. Once riddled with infiltration, agencies like the SBU and HUR are now agile, tech-savvy, and highly effective. Western partnerships have accelerated this evolution, blending advanced technology with deep local knowledge. Ukrainian agents are now expert coders, analysts, and field operatives. Their skills have disrupted Russian logistics, targeted command centers, and shaped the war's narrative. The exposure of the oil route is the culmination of these capabilities. Ukraine is no longer a passive victim. It's a formidable intelligence power. The diplomatic fallout was immediate. Washington and Brussels called for urgent reviews and threatened secondary sanctions on Chinese entities. The West, galvanized by outrage, faces pressure to act decisively. Targeted sanctions on Chinese companies and banks are likely, despite fears of economic blowback. Multinational firms must now scrutinize their supply chains to avoid complicity. The risk of secondary sanctions will chill global finance and accelerate economic de-risking from China. Nations in the global south are watching closely as China's alleged role undermines its leadership claims. For countries valuing sovereignty, Beijing's support for Russia is deeply troubling. Ukraine's intelligence report has redrawn the diplomatic battlefield. The world must now choose sides in a conflict that just became more complicated. The exposure of the Beijing-backed oil route proves that in modern conflict, information is the ultimate weapon. A well-timed intelligence report can cripple economies and shatter alliances without a single shot fired. Ukraine's actions are a masterclass in hybrid warfare, using data to change the course of war. For much of the conflict, Russia dominated the information space. Now, Ukraine has seized the narrative. By gathering and releasing this intelligence, Kyiv forces its adversaries onto the defensive. The implications are profound. Secrecy is no longer guaranteed in a hyper-connected world. Plausible deniability is fading. Actions in the shadows can be exposed with devastating effect. This new form of deterrence is as powerful as military might. The war's future will be shaped by data breaches, satellite imagery, and strategic leaks. In this new reality, expertly wielded truth can reshape alliances and alter the destiny of nations.